Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Acsom Bulletin. It's going to be the final one that we do, gentlemen, in this pre-season, which I think we're all going to take a big, huge, sigh and relief from, because we're back to the competitive stuff on Sunday. Thank you to everyone joining us so far. If you're watching on YouTube, please do like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, because Celtic are back, gents. But we're back on Sunday playing Aberdeen. I'm looking forward to it. Lawrence, I want to kick off. Obviously, we had Norwich at the weekend. There was a former Norwich striker in town, former Celtic striker and Norwich striker in town, because he doesn't live up in Scotland. We spent a bit of time with Chris Sutton over the weekend.
Yeah, it was down at the penalty spot, and then at Paradise Promotions event at Peter Scarf Sports Club in Linwood. If you haven't been, get down to Linwood. Cracking club, really, really nice looking place. Chris was in top form, talking us through his career and how much he liked scalping a now dead team. Touched a wee bit on referees and certain teams lying down. But yeah, really nice guy, Chris. And geez, what a player he was, wasn't he? You know, remember the green and whitewash? He's. I'll just chuck that keeper.
We were born for that one, by the way, Lawrence. I know sometimes you bring up the old 90s references, but we were born. I think I was maybe 4 that season. Patrick, you'd have been just 3 going on for that year.
Probably 3, aye.
But
you have watched the videos or DVDs. You'll probably know
absolutely. I've got the DVDs, that and the boy who would be king and whatnot. And obviously yesterday marked 25 years since the King of Kings signed for Celtic. So yeah, listen, it's great that we've got these guys, involved in events and whatnot, and we're hearing their Celtic tales. And Patrick, the name Peter Scarf's obviously something that me and you know all about too well.
Yeah, our mate Matthew, a relative. So I'm glad you had a good time, Lawrence. I'm glad Chris Sutton was in top form. So 2 Celtic greats there, and hopefully we can create a few more greats and legends in the coming seasons, because if journalists and Australian commentators are to be believed, Ange Ball is only going to get better this season.
Yeah, we'd heard so much about, it was going to take to the second season to see Ange Postecoglou's team being full fettle. And, we went on, we won the Premier Sports Cup in the league last year. Goodness knows what awaits us in this season. But, there's a lot to be getting on with, to be talking about. So, yeah, I think that's a good shout from Lawrence here. Peter Scarf covering Paisley. It's quite fairly new. Hopefully, you'll get up to it soon, Patrick, with Mr. Matthew's Scarf, and he might buy us a drink for a change, but we'll see and wait on that one. The first thing I want to come to, Lawrence, I think it's something that's, starting to become a bit of a panic within some quarters of the Celtic support. Lost in the half space on Twitter yesterday did a really good couple of graphics on Joe Hart's positioning at the weekend as the sweeper keeper. It was almost like Hi Bodo Glimt, how are you? Except it was Joe Hart in the middle of the back three. What's your take on this? Is this just something we're trying out in pre-season, or has Ange Postecoglou seen something that he didn't see last season and thinks that Joe Hart can play a role further forward, in Celtic's attack, if you will?
I think Joe's on saying, it's something he's got to learn, and it's something he's got to get a bit more comfortable with. He's got to get experience doing it, better trying it out in pre-season. But at some point, you can expect to see it during the season in a competitive fixture. Hopefully, Joe can adjust there and learn the position. It certainly seems to be a feature of Ange's teams previously that they would have a sweeper keeper. I don't see any reason why Joe wouldn't be able to do that. Although he did give us a wee scare against Norwich, didn't even Pookie close them down. So I think getting rid of the ball quicker sometimes, don't get caught as much. But yeah, I think we're going to see that. Bring him up, just creating an extra player for us.
Patrick, are you holding your breath still when Joe Hart gets the ball at his feet, or have you got full belief and confidence in him that he's kind of adapted to this after basically a year of playing it?
Well, I know it's the way Ange wants to play. I know it's the sort of modern way of playing football. So it's just one of these things that you have to get used to. But when teams are pressuring him and players are closing him down and he holds onto the ball a wee bit too long, sometimes it does sort of give you heart in the mouth moment. But no, I was just looking at the tweet once you mentioned it there. It's like playing a back three, really, isn't it? It gives you that extra man.
The main centre half, yeah.
And that is the advantage that you're getting if your goalkeeper can play this way. Now, whether we're going to try this against Aberdeen on Sunday is a different story. But if we can do it against, sort of, if we can learn to play it most of the time, then having an extra player, having an extra outfield player, it gives you a massive advantage. Even if it is, sort of your heart skips a beat sometimes. The way sort of dummies players and tries to beat players, but no, it's interesting to see what Ange will try this season, because as he said when we brought in Harry Kewell, people can't feel settled. We're constantly trying new things and bringing new players in and just trying to better ourselves. And if that means leaving people behind, so be it. So it'll be interesting to see what else he tries this season, because the sort of inverted fullback, that was the thing early on last season, and we seem to have mastered that, or close to mastering it. So been an interesting season.
Yeah, there's some players, obviously, Alexander Bernabe's just arrived in, and obviously he's going to need to adapt to that, and that's for me why you need to kind of persist with Taylor for the first wee while until Bernabe comes up to speed with what the manager probably expects in that role. Lawrence, we're getting comments on this already. Please do comment, because I think it's a wee bit an interesting one. Douglas has come in to say that McGregor needs cover, and on the flip side of this, Gary Melrose has come in to say that if you were hoping for Ange Postecoglou to try 3 centre-halves, don't think too many thought that one would be the goalie. Lawrence, what is your take on this? Do you expect us to be trying this against Aberdeen, or have we just been trying something different out in pre-season? And then, listen, if we get caught out with it, I know a lot of Celtic fans will say we're getting caught out with the ball at the back last season, we'll change it. But what is your take on this? Because John here has come in the comments to say maybe it was just to give Joe more time in the ball. I don't think they'll be quite as bold in real games. Do you expect Celtic to be bold in real games with this sweeper-keeper stuff?
I think it will depend on the opposition. How deep they're sitting. I think it's an option that will come in. Would they expect it to stay in the Champions League? Nah, definitely not. But, if Aberdeen decide to park the bus and not cross the halfway line, well, yeah, I'd maybe expect to see it then. So I think it's a kind of tactic in a game that we'll bring out, just depending how the opposition's playing at the time. If we're doing it in pre-season, I think it's something we're going to see at some point during the game. If teams are sitting really deep, maybe just leaving one up, and we just want to push boys on and try and create something. Yeah, he comes in and creates an extra player. So yeah, expect to see it, but probably not in the Champions League. Maybe against kind of oppositions that are just camped in their own half.
Well, you never know. Patrick is not Patrick that we're on with. Patrick McLaughlin here in the comments is hopeful that he's going to go a dribble and put one in the top bag. That would be magnificent if he did that, but I can't imagine that happening all too often. Patrick, just in terms of this, Michael McDonald's came in here in the comments to say that Hearts teammates have to be in the right position to receive a pass. It's the future. What's your take on that? Because obviously you've had a look at the graphic there, and you see how further forward it helps us get up the park. In terms of what Lawrence is talking about there in the opposition, if you are going to be playing teams that are camped in, which we know is the kind of the norm against majority sides in the league coming to Celtic Park, is this something that we can look towards to try and help us get further forward and get those early goals that we maybe need?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the picture I'm on right now, you've actually got Taylor in the middle along with McGregor, and then you've got, I think it's Hatate out in the left wing sort of thing, and then obviously you've got so many players beyond them as well. So it creates a structure where like every player's got at least 2 or 3 options for a pass, and I think that's what Ange wants, because if you've always got an option for a pass, there's a very little chance you lose the ball, and then you can sort of still keep the ball moving very quickly. So on the face of it, against a Norwich team that couldn't score over 90 minutes, it looks like a good system. But obviously that's going to be tested at the highest level this season, and it's going to receive a pretty stern test against what looks to be an improved Aberdeen team, because I think they've done really quite well under Jim Goodwin at the start of this season in the League Cup games. So I'm expecting a relatively tough game to open the season.
Yeah, one man they're going to be without, though, is who they're basically dubbing as the new Alec McLeish, and Liam Scales. He's not going to be featuring for Aberdeen, who's been, I think, quite an important part of how they've played so far. Obviously, they've won every game that they've played in the League Cup. I think it's 4 clean sheets in the League Cup. But again, there's been lesser opposition, so this is a big test for them. They're a team in transition. They've made a lot of new additions to the side. Obviously, Jim Goodwin's been here for a while, but it will be a tough test. I expect Aberdeen to do a lot better than they did last season under Stephen Glass. Just to come back to this, Lawrence, Patrick again came back in to say here, do you think we'll be up the park long enough in spells to do that? High line with Joe in the Champions League, though. I think I am agreeing with you in this point, Lawrence, that in the Champions League it's a definite no-go.
Yeah, it's depending on your level of oppositions and how they're pressing you and where they are. And I can't see is doing that with a higher level of opposition, and yeah, I think with the quality of opposition, that the risk increases playing your keeper up that high, doesn't it? Misplaced passes that commentators saying, or somebody just taking a shot from inside their own half if if they win the ball back. So yeah, I don't see in the Champions League, but listen, you never know. You never know, but it would just be scary, wouldn't it? If you saw Joe as the last line of defence in the centre circle, passing the ball about against I don't know who we may draw in the Champions League, but if it was against a Bayern or a Real or Barcelona, yeah, no, hopefully not.
You're already getting nightmares about it, big man. I can see the bit of start sweating there. But yeah, Patrick, you've probably got PTSD like myself. Thinking about that Davy Marshall one that he was so far out his goal line in that game against Czech Republic at the Euros. We don't want a repeat of that. There's people coming in, saying that someone will score from the halfway line. Actually, if you think back to that Bannock Estrava game, and there was at points that the Estrava players were trying to hit shots, from about 30, 40 yards in to see. But to come back on us and it draws back in, Paddy Lavery's came in the conversation and said that Hart is to remember as a keeper first and foremost, not a footballer. But to me now, the role of a goalkeeper is so much more than just stopping shots, isn't it? Especially in this Ange Postecoglou system. And I've also seen debate from Celtic fans in saying that they were expecting possibly, someone to come in at as good a level as Joe Hart, but we bet the ball better at their feet. But I'm pretty content that we've brought in Siegrist to be Joe Hart's number 2, because I still think that Joe Hart was an integral player last season, and he will be again this season for Celtic.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think, at our level, I think goalkeepers have to be footballers to an extent. They don't have to be, Ederson and Alisson, the way Liverpool and Man City operate. But to do what Joe Hart's doing, to try that out in pre-season, to maybe test it against, teams like St Mirren and teams, maybe like Ross County as well, who are going to have 10 or 11 players in their own half when our centre-backs have the ball. So I don't think there's any harm in trying it. I agree with both of you. I don't think we'll see it in the Champions League. I think that would just be naive. We'd have to be a bit deluded if we're going to try that against, one of the pot 1 or pot 2 teams. But I think you need to try and sort of roll with the changes, if you will. Try and use your keeper as a footballer, because it does give you that extra man when you're trying to break teams down. You've got an 11th man, at that sort of in the back three as it is when Joe Hart appears up there. But at the same time, obviously, he does need to be a shot stopper first, and I think that's why Barkas. We were told Barkas was going to be good at his feet, but I think we'd all take Fraser Forster over Vasilis Barkas, because at the end of the day, is right. It is shot stopping first, passing the ball around the back second. Yeah,
no, absolutely correct on that. And it'll be interesting to see how this kind of pans out. You'll be able to tell very early on Sunday if we're going to do that or not, possibly going forward. And just to kind of wrap that conversation up, Paul's came in here to say that Hart is a decent touch, but he believes that it takes a while for him to get the ball out from his feet. He hopes that we are hammering Toby Olubayemi with passing, positioning and footwork drills. Obviously, Olubayemi signed some Spurs, meant to be this kind of next replacement of Joe Hart, but again, I think he's a long way away from that at this point in time. John Boy as well has come in the comments to say he doesn't mind Joe Hart playing further forward in league games against teams parking the bus, but not in Europe. We could be countered quickly. Absolutely, I totally agree in that one. To come into, obviously, but we're talking about Joe Hart taking that excel position forward. That creates more space for our midfield players to kind of accelerate forward. That maybe, to an extent, gives Callum McGregor a bit more cover in there, even though your goal line is completely empty when Joe Hart's maybe 20 yards, 25 yards from goal. In terms of our midfield, and that's what our caption is, what is Ange Postecoglou's strongest midfield? There's a lot of headaches in here. Patrick, I'm going to come to you with this one first. I thought against Leeds, midfield that night looked absolutely terrific. We're going to need to have a big sword. We're going to need to have rotation, but what would be your midfield going into the game on Sunday?
Definitely McGregor, Hatate and O'Reilly. That's, without doubt, in my opinion, best midfield in Scotland, and it's the best midfield we can deploy in domestic games. Champions League, again, with so many things, it's a massive caveat for just about every conversation we have on here. It's completely different. We spoke about that double pivot earlier last week with Moy signing. I think that could be vital in Champions League games to try and sort of break up the passing and the turnovers and the spells that other teams have against us in the Champions League, try and defend and keep the goals out. But without doubt, on Sunday and in every other domestic game, I would go Callum McGregor, Matt O'Reilly and Rio Hatate, because 10 teams out of 11 are going to sit in and just try and stop us playing, and those are the 3 players with the best sort of creative ability put together, and that would be my midfield.
Lawrence, I'm hoping that you're going to disagree in this one. I've got Kevin Quinn here in the comments saying that good afternoon, boys. I think Turnbull will be great for us this season. He scored an absolute belter at the weekend. He does really, really well to get the ball out his feet. Patrick Smirkin obviously thinking, but that was coming on for the bench, so let him do that on Sunday. Would you agree with Patrick, Hatate, McGregor, O'Reilly?
It's a bit of a strange question in that, I expect 5 of the front 6 to be changed in every game, the way Ange plays. So I don't think it's like a midfield 3 for the game. I think McGregor, he takes one of the 3 positions. Rio on his pre-season, I think Rio's got a good chance of being player of the season if he keeps up the kind of form he's been in. And it leaves 1 to go. And after the Norwich game, I would start Turnbull. I thought he had a game at the weekend, and O'Reilly did. But I'd fully expect to see O'Reilly come on at some point for Turnbull during the game. It's not like we're going to pick 3 and go, right, that's the 3 for the 90 minutes. So I think Ange will be aware of, he'll maybe look at the opposition and say, right, how's the midfield playing? Who's going to do best against it? Is it O'Reilly or Turnbull? And for me, after Norwich, it would be Turnbull. I just thought he had a really good showing against Norwich, including his goal, but outside his goal as well. Rio's had a cracking pre-season, and Calmac just starts. But to go back to touch on the double pivot that Patrick mentioned, it's interesting against Norwich, we ended up with 2 defensive midfielders on the park. And I was speaking to Jared about it, a friend from Celtic Down Under. He said that Ange actually had a season with a team where he played 4-2-2-2, where he played the double pivot, which people remember Celtic had most of a season with 4-2-2 under John Barnes, which perhaps wasn't as successful as the way Ange played it, because apparently Ange won the league with it. So it was interesting that we saw 2 number 6s coming on for a wee bit against Norwich. But for me, I would start with McGregor, Rio and Turnbull, and I'd expect at least probably 2 of those to be changed at some point during the game.
Yeah, it's a great headache to have, as this comment says here. And really, you could pick any of the players. I would tend to probably agree with Patrick on it. I think it's a case of, it's going to become a sentence that I think we keep repeating all season, but McGregor picks himself basically in that Celtic midfield, and then it's rotation around that. But Hatate's been absolutely sensational in pre-season for me. I thought it was absolutely terrific on Saturday, and I think, by the way, if he keeps that form up and he's consistent, but I think, after having the pre-season that he's had, he could be in with a shout like many Celtic players will be for the Old Player of the Year. But listen, we're not out of July yet. Keep that one towards the back end of April and see how we're getting on there. But yeah, I think it's a great dilemma that we've got. And Patrick, to come in here from Jamie Young, he said that he was watching all of last season's goals this morning, and it's clear we're going to miss big Tom Roddick. Now, Tom Roddick, as we know, absolutely loved a goal against Aberdeen. Many happy memories of Tom Roddick goals against Aberdeen, whether it be at Celtic Park or Pittodrie, or of course that most special one at Hampden in the Invincible treble final. But to me, Matt O'Reilly is that ready-made replacement in midfield, and I don't think we're going to miss Roddick as much as we probably would have had we not signed Matt O'Reilly in January.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They're actually very similar players. But the ground that O'Reilly covers is sensational. He's probably it's like Roddick, but more suited to Ange's system. The way that he plays. But Roddick was key last season. I mean, in December, when you look at the statistics and the points we picked up solely because of Tom Rogic, it really is quite ridiculous. So it's going to be a big miss, and he's one of these players. It's like the world class players. They sort of turn up at the right moments, and obviously a player can't turn up in every big moment. But Tom Rogic seemed to do it more than most. Kyogo's another one of those players. They sort of turn up in the big games when you need them the most, and it'll be interesting to see what sort of players sort of fill that void and turn up when we need dug out a hole. Hopefully we don't need dug out a hole at any point this season, but if we do, obviously Roger was a fan favourite. I think we all loved him. We're going to miss him. Even if he is photobombing One Direction posts, but and what was it, Sydney
You're
Airport
just
or
jealous you
something
weren't in the
celestial.
picture. You'd have loved that.
I know.
And
it's
big
actually
One
Louis.
Direction fan, Lawrence. It's
Aye,
actually
aye.
it's Harry Styles who he prefers than the other boy. Posters and all that, and that wall. That's what's round the other side of the wall. So that's what he's right into. But not to be, because he was over in sunny Glasgow on Sunday. So no Melbourne or whatever. Was it Melbourne Airport? I think it was in. Wasn't Sydney Melbourne?
I have no idea.
I think it was Melbourne. So yeah, Patrick's missed out on that one. Louis Tomlinson. But yeah, the real star in the photo was Tom Rogic, and I'll be interested to see where his next move goes, because I think we all wish him all the very best. But yeah, a lot coming in here to say, Callum McGregor, best player at the club. I think he's the best player in the country, in Scotland in these days. Absolutely fantastic. But we need to come back from the chat around the midfield. Again, Will's came in here to say sorry that his three would be Hatate, O'Reilly and Callum McGregor, but Ange likes Turnbull too. He didn't miss a game until he got injured last season. I think my sim just went or not. I think we're all right. Just to kind of come back to the defence, gents, Pete's came in here and he said that our tagline is the wrong question. The midfield sorted. The real question is, who makes the back four? Lawrence, I'm going to come to you in this one. First of all, we're going to look at centre halves first. Moritz Jens, who we speculated about last week. It happened 4 or 5 hours, I think, after we did the chat on here. He came on at the weekend. He looked pretty impressive. I was at the fan media press conference with him last Friday. He said he was fit. He was ready to go. He did pre-season with FC Lorient. But surely Stephen Welsh should be getting the shout over Moritz Jens for this game.
So we know Ange doesn't like to mess about with the defence. So it's the area he least tinkers with. I'm going to go with Taylor and Cameron Carter-Vickers definitely start. So it's whether you play Juranovic or Ralston, Ralston's had a brilliant pre-season, and then Welsh or Jens. And I thought Jens had really good showing. Apart from initially when he first came on, he actually got caught sleeping and somehow they get a corner. Remember the boy nipped in front of him and should have scored, but didn't. But after that, looks as if he can defend well, play a pass, look decent in the air. What are we going to do with Stephen Welsh? Another club interested in him. It was Udinese last year, more interested in him this year. And for me, after the Norwich showing, I'm going to go with Jens. He just looked more comfortable and seemed to give it a bit more balance. And because we're playing Jens and making a change there, I'm probably not going to play Tony Ralston. I'll go with Juranovic on the right. So that would be my back four. Jura, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Jens and Taylor.
Okay, that's fair enough. Patrick, Brian's came in the comments here to say he thought that Jens looked a real contender. I know you missed the game on Saturday due to work, but he came onto the park. I don't know if you've caught any of the game at all. His first action was to block a Norwich shot, and then he cleared the corner. So when he came on, he certainly looked the player, a big presence. What was your take on this? Because I just thought going into the game on Saturday that the starting 11 we were likely to play against Norwich would be probably what we'd go for against Aberdeen the following week. I just think it might just come too quick for Moritz Jens. Because obviously he's going to need to get up to speed with game time and stuff. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Welsh as well. Taylor, Welsh, Carter-Vickers and Juranovic. Mainly because we've seen what happened with Starfelt at Tynecastle last season. And, he sort of had, he had a shaky couple of months really after that, if you think about it. So with Jens coming in, when would they have met the players? Maybe Wednesday or Thursday? So he might
due
not.
to Legia Warsaw. So we've been told by Celtic that the players basically arrived just as the club were leaving to go to Legia Warsaw. and they only then met the players. Possibly actually, they met them on Tuesday briefly before they flew out to Leeds, and then they never trained with them until Friday. So both coming on Friday, they'd only had one full training session, I think, with the whole squad.
Right. So for that reason, I would say Welsh, because he knows Cameron Carter-Vickers and vice versa. I think, as you were saying earlier, I think we'll stick with Taylor until Bernaby sort of gets up to speed with what's required of a left back in Ange's system, and then I think you play your best players when you can. So I think Jovanovic goes ahead of Ralston, despite the fact that Ralston is arguably the sort of on form right back in our squad.
Probably the better pre-season.
Yeah, totally agree. But that would be the back four I would go with.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But again, I think you've got a bit of flexibility in there. But again, as Lawrence, you touched on there, that Ange, it's at a position of the park, centre halves particularly, that he doesn't like to tinker with and change about. Just in terms of Stephen Welsh, back to what you'd said, Lawrence, last year. Obviously, the interest came from Udinese, not even last year. I think that was January time we got interest in him from Udinese. Now we've got Chris Julian's former side to lose. Where are you at with this one? Because I just think that personally I would keep a hold of Stephen Welsh, just due to the fact that I think it's a bit of a hard sell in the market to try and go out and say to somebody, you're probably going to be coming here as a fourth choice pick. As long as he's happy to continue to do that and continuing to work hard, and I'm just seeing that that he possibly could go far and above his ceiling that maybe a lot of people already think he might already be at. But what is your take on Stephen Welsh? Would be a stick or twist? I'm a stick at this point in time.
It's a question of how we best develop him and how we best keep cover at the club. I think we can all agree, Julian's time, good servant as he was when he was fit, kind of pre-Ange, I think his time's definitely finished. So at the club for centre half now, I think Welsh is falling into maybe fourth position. If we have long-term future for him, is he going to get enough game time with us, or could we look to get him on loan if we bring in another centre half? I wouldn't let him go on loan until we had kind of 4 players here that we were comfortable with. Karen Vickers, Starfelt, Jens, and another, which at the moment's Welsh. I don't think he's really going to get developed. I don't think he's going to get a lot of game time if he stays with us. I think if we could maybe get... I know Ange just said he's still in the market for a few players. If we could get an experienced centre-half in, and maybe give us a decent season, it would allow us to put Welsh out and get a year of games under him and hopefully develop better there. I could be wrong. He could start against Aberdeen, score the winner, 3 goal line clearances and nail down the position for the next week. Who knows? But
he scored at Dingwall.
Yeah, he definitely needs game time to develop. I just don't think he's going to get it here. I don't think he's at his ceiling yet. I think Jens looked more comfortable as a left centre half than I've seen Welsh look. So I think it gives us a better balance. So that's why I'm going for Jens to start. And yeah, Welsh is a difficult one. I wouldn't let him go on loan unless we had another centre half in other than Julian for cover, because I think Julian's time's come and gone. He's 15 minutes of football since January.
December 2020.
Yeah, it's too long out, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but Ange said we're still in the market. It'd be interesting to see who we're in the market for, and is it just players that now are going to definitely improve the first team? Because we seem to have cover for every position just now, where you would say, right, there's 2 players there. Are we looking for definite starters, or just someone that's good value for us? Because talking to Chris Sutton about it, he's like, he doesn't understand why people aren't excited. He's like, it's a £5-6 million player we've got for nothing that we know can play Ange's system, can cover a variety of positions in midfield. It's as low a risk of signing as we're going to get from a manager who's got a cracking track record, in transfers. So yeah, for Welsh, I'd look to probably to get in cover if we can, decent cover, and get my season loan and speed up his development there. I just don't think being third or fourth choice, he'll get enough minutes to really kick on his development.
Yeah, that's a lot of good points, and we can kind of pick that apart. But we'll come to Aaron Moy very shortly, because I think there's a real good point in that, Lawrence. The reason why we've got him in that free is due to the COVID situation in China. It's been a shutdown since February. I think those 2 qualifiers for Australia were the only 2 competitive games he's actually featured in. So anybody making a judgment on 10-minute cameo against Norwich, having only played 2 competitive games in the space of nearly 6 months. He's not there to be judged on that. So listen, I'm excited about it, but we'll come to him very, very shortly. Patrick, I think there's a point in what Lawrence says there, but just to kind of the caveat of it is, JJ McGarvey's come in here to say that he thinks that Wales needs to be kept for the squad in the Champions League for homegrown players. That's obviously one of the stipulations that you have for UEFA competitions. You need so many homegrown players in the squad, so you'd maybe need to look at a guy like Dane Murray possibly stepping in if the situation occurred that Lawrence is talking about. What is your take on what Lawrence says there? Because I think there's actually a really good point in that about development. A lot of people at this point in time are saying that Mikey Johnson, for instance, maybe needs to go out and loan somewhere, get a lot of game time under his belt to try and get to that point of development that they need. But we've also got this coming in here from Dan in the comments saying that people always clamour for youth to come through but want Welsh out the door at the minute. A team comes in, need to stick by them and develop properly. How do you think we best develop Stephen Welsh? Because again, we've got another comment here saying that I think Welsh needs a full season of game time. What's your take on that one?
It really is quite a conundrum because he's obviously fourth choice. I think we all agree in that. As you say, it's quite hard to go out and sign a fourth choice centre back. You're probably looking at buying one from a Scottish team if you're going to do something like that. So I think it's a matter of squad depth actually, because before we signed Jens, Welsh was probably the guy that came in and played if either Starfelt or Carter Vickers get injured. Now we've got Jens' fourth choice, so we've got a bit more cover. But then if you sell him, you're back to just having sort of one first team centre back as cover. Should we get an injury or a red card or the like? But then at the same time, he's actually only going to become a poorer player if he doesn't play first team football. So if he's expected to get any better, he's going to have to play football either here, somewhere else, or maybe out on loan. But then you're leaving yourself short again. So it is a bit of a conundrum. You could sort of look at the perspective and say, he's 22, 22 and a half, sorry. And, if he is near his ceiling and he's going to get limited game time, how much of a difference is it going to make if you're to play a guy like Lawal or Dane Murray in there? And then, at 18 or 19, playing 10, 15 games, that's actually quite a lot of game time for someone that age. So there's different ways of looking at it. If he's going to be fourth choice, I think we need a relatively capable fourth choice centre back. But how much game time is a player like that going to get? So I personally would stick just now. I would keep him for at least this season. Ange certainly seems to want to do that as well. So I would keep him. Where he gets the game time, I'm not too sure. Starfelt sort of slowly coming back from injury just now. Despite the fact we get quite unlucky with injuries in just about everywhere else on the park last season, the two centre halves did seem to get quite lucky and played most of the games. So you never know what's going to happen. But I would stick with him just now.
Yeah, I agree in that one, especially for this season. How important it is, just to kind of come back to one of the comments from Douglas Saylor. He was asking about the automatic qualification for the Champions League in 2023-24 when we win this even though we reach the final. For the league going into what will be the 23-24 Champions League, if you win the league this coming season, you are straight back in. So it's as important as it was this year, the Champions League. So there's all that. There's everything about a strong squad that was spoken about. Lawrence, I was just looking at Celtic's fixtures earlier this morning with that Ross County game. Then in the League Cup, we're going to need to go to Dingwall on the Wednesday night. We've then got the Glasgow Derby at the weekend, and then we've got match day 1 of the Champions League the following Tuesday or Wednesday. That's why you need a strong squad. That's why you need depth. And at this point in time, unless we've got, as you say, Lawrence, a plan in place here, you can't be letting Stephen Welsh go because it's a very hard sell, and I think it just gives Celtic more work to do in the transfer market. And in terms of the transfer market, Lawrence, we are still in the market. We saw a tweet last week from Anthony Joseph saying that Celtic are still in the market. At this point in time, having now brought in another centre half, having brought in another midfielder, what position or positions plural would you think that Celtic need to be looking at?
I think we're covered in most positions. I think it's going to be down to our scouting network to find people that add real quality. So I think last season was a total rebuild. It was it was a volume of players that we needed in. I think probably this season we're down in numbers, but we're up in quality in terms of the cover we've got. So I don't think we're rushing out to get players for set positions other than get people within budget that are going to improve the first team now. I think it's kind of a different model from what we've seen, because we needed, 2 players for every position. We're kind of there now. So for me, I'd like to see another striker come in. But you've got a Yeti on the wage bill, on a big wage as a striker. And I believe young Lowell starts on the 1st of August. Maybe he can start and get him moved out along with Julian, would free up some wages. I don't think it's set positions. I think it's about quality and people that improve the first team now. Ange seems to be pretty flawless in the transfer market, so we've just got to trust that he knows what he's doing.
Jones came in here to say that Acsom seems to have an agenda against Stephen Welsh. If he believes that Natasha was disrespectful towards Welsh yesterday, well, I don't think anybody does have an agenda against him. Patrick, you and I would both keep him, so we're both members of Acsom, so I don't think that we've got any agenda against Stephen Welsh on that one.
I would keep him unless we get cover, and then I would only let him go on loan to develop him as a player. I'm not saying sell him. So I think it's pretty positive. I don't think he's a starter at the centre halves we've got, and I think he deserves to get developed. And this season, I don't think he's going to get enough minutes for Celtic to do that. So, but at the same time, we can't let him go unless we get experience covering. So I think it'd be best for him to get more minutes to develop and be a long-term option for us. I don't think he'd get to be long-term just sitting on the bench not playing.
Just to kind of come back onto signings, Patrick, a position, and a bit looking at this more flexibly, as a kind of attacking player that can play out in the wing and up top, because at this point in time, obviously you've got 5 attacking players that could play any time for Celtic. Do you think we need somebody that's maybe a bit flexible that can play through the middle and then the right hand side? But again, we've still got Maeda who can do that job, and Abada who can do that job. I'm just worried that either Yakimakis or Kyogo gets an injury, you're left with one striker, then you're having to kind of shoehorn somebody else in.
No, I don't think so. I think we've got adequate cover in those 3 positions. As you said, we've seen Maeda in that position in sort of February last season. He done a relatively good job, and then the chances of Kyogo and Yakimakis both been injured. I know it's Celtic, so it's probably highly likely, but it's actually I think we'd have to be seriously unlucky, because it happened last season when neither of them could play, and I think we went with Abada up front, and then sort of Joey Dawson came on against St Johnstone. So I think we're fine when it comes to a striker, especially since we only play one. And then you might not count them as first team players, but then you've actually got quite a lot of cover in the wing. You've got guys like Mikey Johnson and James Forrest, who we say would probably struggle for game time at Celtic, but then if we have these injury crises, they're actually going to play a decent amount of games. For example, Mikey Johnson played the League Cup final last season because we're so thin on the ground. So
Owen Moffat get a chance to come on as well.
Yep. So we've got these players. Rocco Vata can play that position. I know Lawrence corrected me last week that he is a midfielder, but he can play in those positions. So
he's been playing kind of outside right when he's come on in the pre-season, which is interesting.
Yeah. So personally, I think we've got enough cover if we rotate adequately. You were saying a minute or two ago, we've got those 3 really key games in the space of 7 days with the League Cup, the League, and the Champions League. But when you get to that sort of, you're playing midweek in October sort of thing, you're playing games in the middle of February, and you're just sort of trying to grind out 1 and 2-0 wins.
You remembered not to mention there because of the World Cup.
Correct.
That'd be the month.
Correct.
Well done. Easy. Could have been an easy mistake to make.
Mm-hmm. We do actually play, I think, 3-4 games in December, but I see your point. But no, I think we've got adequate cover in those positions. You've probably got 5 players in 3 positions who you would consider first team quality. So no, to answer your question, I think we're fine.
Lawrence, what's your take? An attacking player, Patrick's spoken there, very well about the flexibility we've got up top. We've got players who can come in from the wing and play through the middle. and it might not be that we need to put too much emphasis on what you would kind of describe as an old classic number 9, because our goals do come from all over the pitch, and we were able to kind of navigate ourselves through it in December time doing it, and hopefully we don't have anything like the situation we had last year with Kyogo and Giacomakis, and that's Giacomakis who I think was out November, December time, didn't feature too often at first, and then was a complete revelation coming in at the second part of the season. So both those two guys will be hoping to keep themselves fit. So what's your take on a striker for Celtic? Do you think we're cool there?
Well, last season we see that we can get both injured at the same time, and I think Joey Dawson even gets some minutes. The guys that can come in and cover through the middle, Abada, Maeda, Forrest, well, Mikey Johnson, if he doesn't go on loan, I think he's played through the middle. So we're dragging somebody off the wings to play him through there. I don't think, both of those players if both our strikers get injured for 4 games, I wouldn't be comfortable going in with any of them starting up front for 4 games. I think we're short up front, and I like another option in. Whether we're going to get that while Ayeti's still in the wage bill, maybe whoever's managing the squad's looking go, well, you've got a striker there on, 14, 15 grand a week. I'm not buying another striker until he moves on. So yeah, I would like to see another striker come in rather than having to pull somebody off the wing and play them out of position. Not too sure that Celtic will speculate the money while Ayeti's still there.
Yeah, that's something to remember. That Alban Ayeti's still at the club. Of course, he contributed last season. I mentioned that last week. He scored those goals against Ross County. He did play his part to an extent.
Betis,
and he's winning in the League
Betis,
Championship. Yeah, and he obviously scored in Betis in the Europa League too. So he contributed something to the team. But just he's not played anywhere near what you'd maybe expect for a third choice striker in pre-season, Patrick. But we've not really seen him feature. It just doesn't seem as if he's a part of the plans at Celtic at this point in time. So to kind of go back on this, Kevin's asking in the comments, do you think any more players to come in this window?
Yes. I don't know where, I don't know who, I don't know when, but I think there's just too
Could
much
be
in
a
the window
song.
to go. It could be.
Might
Oh,
be.
God.
Lawrence, any kind of 80s poppy hats with that line there?
I don't know, but on that question, did Natasha tip Moy as a Celtic signing about a month before we signed him? Maybe we should be asking Natasha.
Possibly.
I'm
And
pretty
get the
sure
lottery numbers
she
off
wrote
her at the
it.
same time.
Yeah, but I think there'll be players coming in. But loan to buy, unless we can get Ayeti and Julian away. But loan to buy served as well, hasn't it? Look at Jota, Camcat Vickers, Dyson Maeda. So yeah, I think anyone that comes in might be the loan to buy unless we can get somebody away permanently that kind of takes that liability with them.
Patrick, but you do expect, I expect more arrivals. Blanky, who comments regularly on a Tuesday, thinks there'll be 2 or 3 new players in, a centre defensive midfielder, a centre half and a striker. 2 of those positions I would say Celtic have probably lightly covered themselves in now, because we know that Aaron Moy can play as that kind of number 6, but again in his presser last week he said he'll play anywhere in midfield that the manager tells him to play. Centre half I'd say we're covered, and unless we did opt to probably punt Stephen Welsh, because even if Julian is to go in this window, I think we've got 4 there that probably walk in front of him. Striker's potentially the one position I think maybe, but what's your take on the other 2, centre defensive midfield and centre half?
Well, I said a couple of minutes ago I think we're covered at striker. I think we're covered in all those positions, but then I'm not going to say no to a player. If Celtic want to sign a player, if Ange thinks he's good enough for the first team, then obviously bring him in. Nothing wrong with a bit of healthy competition. So I still think there's signings to come. I just think there's too much of the window to go, in my opinion. We've got about 35 days or something. So, I'd actually prioritise the outgoings, actually. What you were saying about Ayeti a couple of minutes ago. You've got a lot of these players. We've sent a few of them out on loan, Sorrow and Barkas. We've punted Bolingoli finally. But yeah, Yeti's probably that one that's still sort of stuck there, along with Julian, really, who we just can't seem to get rid of. I'd maybe prioritise getting rid of them. It's going to be a tough ask, really, trying to punt a guy who's basically not played since December. I think Betis was his last game. at home when he done that nasty injury. But I think there'll be more signings to come. Maybe only one or two, and I'm not sure what positions yet, but I think there's just too long to go for us to sign nobody.
Yeah, Lawrence, just to come back to that kind of defensive midfielder type thing, Kevin's come in here to say that he believes that Adeguchi is going to come good to a great player. I don't think, keep repeating this, that Ange Postecoglou signed Yusuke Adeguchi along with his fellow countrymen in January for any reason. He brought him to Celtic to be an impactful player, and he was probably, apart from Maeda, definitely one of the more senior players who had obviously been at Leeds, experienced British football, and he's getting back for a second crack at the whip.
Yeah, I suppose centre or defensive midfielder is probably where we've got most players for. You've got Callum, Gucci, Moy, Scott Robertson, James McCarthy. So
I don't think Robertson's in the plans at all. Just consider he's been used, not been used at all in pre-season.
With Robertson, he's been out on loan. We've got, we talk about having a plan for developing players. If he's not going to be part of the plans now, after which seemed to be a successful loan period at that time, is it time to sell him? Because we've got plenty of defensive midfielders. Bringing in another one, I know we can push Callum further forward. I think Callum's far and away the best defensive midfielder at the club. The problem is kind of no one comes close to his standards. I know we saw Ange experiment with two defensive midfielders on the park. Maybe we'll see that in the Champions League. Who knows? But bringing in another one, it's what standard we're going to bring in it. If Scott Robertson's not part of the plans after having his period out on loan, what do we do with him? Are we just keeping him, or should we look to move him on? So I don't see us bringing in another defensive midfielder. I think Gucci has been brought because he can cover for that role. So, I can't see us bringing in another defensive midfielder, especially not after Moy coming in. But who knows? We'll wait and see.
Patrick, would you agree in Scott Robertson? I think The Athletic published a piece about 2-3 weeks ago saying that I think Celtic were open to a move. Surely, if he was going to be part of the plans, we would have seen him at one point in the pre-season.
Yeah, it's just quite difficult to see where he fits in. I know it's all well and good saying, there's so many players ahead of him, but, Lawal still found, I think it was 2 halves of football Lawal played in pre-season. So I think if the manager wanted to play me, probably would have fit him in somewhere. It's hard to tell with young players, academy players. I think, players can sort of come from nowhere. Kieran Tierney struggled to break through his own year, and then 2 years later he's a first team regular at Celtic. So it's impossible to tell. By all accounts, Lawrence will know better than me. He had a good loan season last season. So, his career's not down the pan by any stretch. He'll be able to carve out a good footballing career. Just it's a tricky one to see where he fits in at Celtic, in my opinion. But you never know. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. I think this is a really good point that Eamon's came in with to say that the loan market will be used towards the end of the transfer window when other clubs advise players are not part of their plans. That's when you'll be able to possibly bring in, he possibly thinks a centre-half strike would be happy to play on the bench. Yeah, it's a moving market, gentlemen. Obviously, as the market moves, I'm sure Celtic will act. They'll be in the market for players, and if circumstances change, they can then make their move. But yeah, there's still plenty of time to go, obviously. And last season proved, although it is nice to get players in early and whatnot, last season proved, that deadline day of Giakoumakis, Carter Vickers and Jota, that you can bring 3 players in late and they can make a big impact on your season. It would put us all at ease if I think we'd got them in earlier. But yeah, I think that's a really good point for me, and that is a developing market, and a market that developed quickly was Aaron Moy's deal to Celtic. We've got an Aussie in the comments here who asked for his view on here. Here he is, and he's came back to us with this. He said that Moy will need to get fit. Once fit, he will boss the European midfielder role. Ball retention, dictates plays, controls the tempo. Is key to playing out through the Rangers' high press, Patrick. I think that's really, really interesting in terms of those aspects of his game that have been outlined there. He's also come back to say that he is biased as an Aussie. Obviously, Aaron, 52 caps. He's got a World Cup coming up in November time that I'm sure he'll be trying to get ready for. But he's followed Aaron Moy many years and know his class intimately. What's your take on that? I think Aaron Moy will be a good player for Celtic.
Yeah, I'm not sure about bossing the entire the entire European midfield. You know, he was at Huddersfield and Brighton, so you know, probably what would you call it? So I limit your sort of expectations, I suppose. But you know, it's what Lawrence said. You know, earlier in the show, you've got a guy who would maybe cost a couple of £1 million, and you're getting him for free. And the only real reason that people are writing him off is because of his age. And you get plenty of very, very. You get a lot of top players at the age of 31. You know, you get James Forrest in the squad. Scott Brown had a great season when he was 31 at Celtic. A lot of centre halves, a lot of midfielders have great seasons when they're 31, 32. So he's, you know, everyone that's watched him says he's got the ability. He's worked with Ange before. I don't think the club or Ange or the board are cheaping out here at all. I think it just, as Lawrence said, it's a risk-free signing. You know, it's only really wages. And when you've got guys like Julian and Ayeti just sort of eating up wages at the club, you can't really complain about that sort of stuff. So if he can sort of match the quality of the midfielders we've already got, you know, I said earlier that Turnbull's probably the one that loses out in our midfield. I'm a massive David Turnbull fan, and in pre-season he's found Kyogo plenty of times. He scores great goals. He scored a great goal on Saturday. If Moy can match that, if he can play to that level, then we've got a really, really good signing, and he brings an experience, and you know, the way that he plays could come in handy in Europe. So I think it's a great signing.
Yeah, you know, came back here to say that Moy's a sponge, safe pair of boots, building out from the back, absolutely what Ange wants in his system. Lawrence, you know, we've spoken about rotation, especially in those forward areas. We keep the midfield as probably a forward area just for the base Celtic play. Stevens came in here in the comments, he said that he believes that Moy will be a 20-minute sub, but I don't see that happening at all. I think that Celtic midfield will be constantly rotating, and Moy will be wanting game time before this World Cup, and he'll be wanting to add something to this Celtic team, because having not played for so long, you know, he'll be hungry to get back in there and play, and it'll be his first crack at, you know, Champions League football.
Yes, I think we've touched on it. You know, the midfielders apart from Callum could probably get, you know, the two of them probably expect to get changed at some point during the game. And I think if someone comes off and does 20 minutes and scores a couple of goals and looks cracking, I'm pretty sure Ange will think, you know what, I'm going to start him next week. I think the jersey's there to be one for everyone. I think Ange is pretty clear on that to the players. You know, if you perform, make the jersey yours, you'll start. So I'm not expecting him to be a starter to begin with. You know, he's a wee bit behind in terms of pre-season, but if he comes in and does well, I can see him starting a few games for us. And suddenly, if he comes in and it doesn't work for him, I think, you know, he could see his position being taken by another midfielder on the bench. And who knows, maybe Scott Robertson, if we don't send him on loan.
Well, you never know, but we'll wait and see till then. Patrick, just to kind of come back to the transfer deal that we got Aaron Moy on free transfer. Ryan Taylor's coming in the comments. He said that we could have had Jordan Larson and a free resale value on top. Do you think that was ever really going to happen? Maybe possibly wage demands? I don't know. I imagine that Aaron Moy's wage in the Premier League, especially at Brighton and Huddersfield when he was there, was, you know, top dollar. China don't pay poor wages either. He was talking about his career over there, and he played with Oscar. If you remember him, he used to be at Chelsea, the Brazilian boy. I think he played alongside Hulk as well. Remember Hulk that used to play for Porto? There's another player that he played against with there. But
this is sounding like children's TV, Oscar and Hulk. You know, it's like
there you go.
and the Hulk.
That and 80s pop tunes. There we go. What a Tuesday. You come back to Jordan Larson, Patrick. Do you think that there was ever potential in that deal to possibly happen? Because, listen, they would have probably fitted the system if we take the name out of the equation. But do you think maybe his wage demands were too much?
Hard to say. I think it was probably our best chance to sign him to date.
Would have been our best chance.
Yeah. And without the transfer fee, you know, I think the transfer fee that Spartak were wanting, it was like 15 or 20 million. So with that out of the equation, it was just wages left. And I think his agent was making noises that, you know, he was open to the idea. You know, he didn't sort of actively want to come here, but he was open to the idea. And then Celtic came out a few days later and said, no, there's no interest. So he definitely would have fitted the positions. You know, you were saying earlier, you know, you maybe need a versatile player, someone who can play out right and through the middle. He's definitely that type of player. But, I don't think it was ever really going to happen. There was maybe 1 or 2 days where we thought maybe if Celtic are open to the idea, they could maybe take the plunge, but and sort of splash out. But no, it didn't happen. It's not meant to be, and you sort of need to pick yourself up and move on.
Yeah, Lawrence, to come back to this, Roberts came in here in the comments to say that heavy rotation, high energy midfield, we'll need them this season. Keep up a high energy engine. And yeah, I also found it really, really interesting in the presser last week that Lawrence had touched on playing in what he described as a double six. He's played that before, and then he'd said that he was quite happy to play anywhere in the midfield that the manager wants him to play. I think that's music to Ange's ears in terms of the way that we play football and the way that we want to rotate in there.
Yeah, I think Ange's been clear. He wants players that want to play for the club, doesn't he? So it's no surprise that Moyes came out and said that, I'll play the way that this manager wants me. The double six was interesting, especially when Jared said, look, Ange played that for a season and won the league with it. So it's interesting.
4-2-2.
Yeah. So
I'd be interested, wouldn't it?
Well, you need really good fullbacks, don't you, to cover it? I think when they came out, there was some kind of FIFA think tank, and they had Roberto Carlos as one of the fullbacks. I can't remember the other fullback.
Danny McGreen, another one? No.
Listen, Danny McGreen would just play, mate. I think he would play 2 to 11 in any team I pick, but he should have been. But no, but it was fullbacks that were played at the time. So there be
Danny could have
fullbacks.
still put in a shift at the time. Roberto Carlos' kidney still.
Mate, can Carlos, couldn't lose Danny's boots, could he? Let's be honest, best defender in the world, well and undiagnosed diabetic. It's. I think what did they lose? Was it £9 or something that World Cup? He lost, and still was the best defender in the world. Yeah, but we saw it under Barnes, it didn't really work. But mind you, we had Stan Petrov playing right back for some of that. And then I think Douglas took over, but still managed to get a trophy and win the League Cup. But it'd be interesting to see if it happens. We'll wait and see. But listen, at least we know Ange knows how to play it and win a league playing it. So we'll wait and see if it happens. Yeah, we've got plenty of defensive midfielders. We've got enough players to play a double pivot, haven't we? And Moy and Callum, I suppose, are really flexible that they can both play further forward. So it allows in-game changes in formation that are really easy. I mean, let's be honest, it doesn't matter what formation you start, you won't be able to change your formations in the game with or without the ball, and depending on what's happening on the park, not just through making substitutions. So, yeah, it gives us that option as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's all about, as you said there, a robustness in your squad and the options that it gives you. And if everybody's on song, you've got a real confidence in Celtic to go and deliver this season, because we're fighting in all fronts. We want us to go and retain the league. We want us to be successful with the domestic cups, and we want us to have a right good go at European football, which is what you need a strong squad to do so. Patrick, just to kind of close, because I think time actually ran away from us. Thank you for the really good chat with the comments. Thanks to everybody who's commented. It's been much appreciated, and we're glad that we've kind of dragged ourselves through the pre-season, because we know at times it can be a bit difficult. Karamoko Dembele was named in the, I don't know how to pronounce it, but one of the Golden Boy shortlists, whereas Lila Bada was completely snubbed. And this was something I only noticed the other day. It's why I brought it up. I think that probably says a lot about the whole system of selection of this. It's journalists that select it, and it probably tells you that there's a lot of hidden gems going unknown, that they're just probably being selective of the players that they're repetitively probably kept track of. Found that a bit weird.
Yeah, it's not. I know. I don't think there's many people in Scotland that would put Karamoko Dembele above Lila Bada, especially in the last 12 months. Not to say Dembele isn't a better player, not to say that he can't become a better player, but he's not played in the last year, so I don't see how he can make that shortlist. I don't see how he can make that shortlist ahead of Stephen Welsh or Matt O'Reilly. He's not played any football, so guys who have played 5 games are above him in that list, in my opinion. But obviously Abada, wonderful season last season. I think he got over 30 goal contributions, goals and assists. So I think Abada definitely deserves to be on that list, especially considering he's playing at a relatively high level. These guys, it's usually, guys like Ansu Fati that play for Barcelona and stuff, guys of that age for really, really big world-class clubs. But Abada's done it in the Europa League. So, and he scored it in a Glasgow derby, which is obviously world famous. So yeah, I'm not sure. I think if Abada can get on it, then I'm sure Matt O'Reilly's the same age. I think they're both still 21. Maybe Abada's still 20, but I'm not sure what the
Abada's
age cut-off
20.
point. Right, I'm not sure what the age cut-off is, but Matt O'Reilly had a good 6 months, so
I think he
maybe
also had
that's
quite a
another.
good season at MK Dons before he made the move up to Glasgow, and turns out he was involved in doing
Yeah,
there.
I
So
mean, I think they were all quite gutted to lose him and gutted they didn't get more money. So, as you say, it's these journalists who come from top five leagues don't really care. They've heard of this Karamoko Dembele 5 years ago, and they keep on putting him in their lists. I wouldn't read much into it personally.
no, not at all. And I think Abada won the PFA Scotland Player of the Year award last season. Both of his fellow peers. I think that's probably worth a lot more because it'll be Haaland or Pedri or whatever. It'll probably win the award anyway. So not to worry. Lawrence, just
Listen, Declan,
finally.
there's only one list that really matters, isn't it? That's the team list that Ange puts up on Sunday.
Yep,
These are
and that's how that's it,
no
and how
effect.
the league table looks at the end of the season, which shall hopefully have Celtic top of it once again. Lawrence, just to finally close, women's update at this point in time, they didn't win at the weekend. Can you give us a wee bit of kind of roundup where we're at with the ladies team at this point?
We've had a lot of kind of exits over the summer, so I'm looking at. I'm hopeful we're going to get some more players in. We got a double cup win, and I thought we were going to build on it. Maybe a bit slow getting players in, so hopefully get a few more in. It's early doors yet. There's still time to bring them in, but you need to get the points on the board, don't you? You don't want to end up chasing all the time. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Celtic do. With that. Another round up this Friday, back out with Paradise Promotions and the penalty spot on Friday night with John Hartson up at Hillowbeath. So be over on sunny Fife in the Kingdom. Listen to Big Bad John and his Celtic stories, which will be good. Hopefully be great. Now there's a boy could have won if they had a one to watch, because he was 19 and scored in a UEFA Cup final for Arsenal. Didn't
Yeah,
he?
that's right.
Yeah.
Good
A few
point,
decent transfers by that time. And what a player he was for us. Maybe perhaps they're not the most mobile, shall we say. I'm not too sure he'd have fitted Ange's system with pressing, but what a talent he was, and glad that he signed for us and not the defunct club. But then again, if they spent money on him, perhaps their demise would have been quicker if they'd spent some of the bank's money on him.
But we're glad that John opted for Glasgow Celtic, or you wouldn't be experiencing his company in Friday evening. So yeah, absolutely. As I said earlier, it's been a great show. Thank you everybody for their comments. As I said, if you haven't already liked the video when you've been watching, please do so. Subscribe. We'll be here all week in the build up to what is becoming really, really exciting. Celtic are back in league action on Sunday against Jim Goodwin's Aberdeen. So thank you for everybody who's commented, and Lawrence and Pat.